Our text is going, it's a quick text. It's real quick, and it's coming from Psalms 147, verse 3. That's Psalms 147, verse 3. And it reads, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. I'll read it again. It said, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. You all may be seated. I would say about a month and a half ago, I was at a skating party, and we were at the skating rink, and we were skating around, and I remember I saw a little boy, and he maybe was about the age, no more than like 5 or 6, and the little boy, he was skating like really good, and I was really impressed, and so I kind of just watched him. See, we grew up skating. Our family, that was just one of the things that they just took us to do, so we all loved to skate, and so I was watching this little boy, and he was skating, you know, the ones that bring their own skates, because you can tell this is what they do. He had his own skates on, and he's just going around the ring, and he's fast, and I'm just like mind blown by this little boy. And so I tell myself, I'm like, I'm going to start racing him. I'm going to race him around. Now, mind you, this kid probably doesn't even know I exist. And so I make up in my mind that I'm going to race this little boy. And so I start skating around, and I'm racing him. And I went around a couple of times, and then I think he caught wind of what I was doing because he made eye contact. And then I seen him start going a little faster. So now, although it hasn't been like officially or announced, but we know we're both racing each other at this point. And so I look over at my husband, Fahmy, and he just kind of like, grow up, like, why are you even bothering this little boy? See, he's skating is not his thing, so he typically just sits over to the side. So I blow him off, and we're going around. Now the little boy knows, so now it's competition. So he know I'm racing him. So we're going around and around, and so what was happening, every time we hit a curve, he would turn on the inside, so I would just go on the outside. But this last time, he changed it up on me, and he's decided to go on the outside. So then what happens? Sure and behold, here we go. We collide. Boom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am about to hit this floor. Now, a couple thoughts are going through my head. I didn't want Fahmy to see me because he already said, leave this little boy alone. I didn't know where his parents were, if they had been watching the whole interaction. So my initial thought was, okay, I got to break his fall so he don't fall as hard as I'm about to fall. So what happened, I go down on my knee and kind of break the fall so he can kind of land gentle. And so I scuff my knee up real fast. And so the moral of the story is tonight is we play too much. That's why we hurt. No, I'm just playing. Okay, so what happens is I get this pretty little good wound on my knee, and it hurts. And the next couple of days you get dressed for work and put your pants on, and it rubs against it, and it's irritating. And I got this wound, and I'm looking, I'm like, man, gosh. So then I start to watch it. A week or so go by, and I realize that the pain, it gets a little better. And then a couple more weeks go by, and then I look, oh, okay, it's getting a little skin, forming back over it, and it's healing. And then I'm reminded, I start thinking about what I learned in school. See, we just think that, it just miraculously happened. We get a sore injury and it just heals. But really, God is so strategic and detailed. There's actually steps to a healing process. And so what I realized, I was thinking back at school as I'm looking at the wound that's healing on my leg and see that what God did, he designed, there's 4 different stages that take place in healing. And so this first step that happens is what we call the hemostasis. And so hemostasis, what happens y'all gonna get a little lesson, y'all don't even know it, okay, but you're gonna know how to heal. And so hemostasis, what happens is whenever there is a injury or a break in the skin, basically a blood vessel blows and you're bleeding, hemostasis kicks in within seconds, because what it wants to do is it wants to stop your body from bleeding out. So that's the first, and that has to happen fast. And don't you just love that the thing that ignites that first stage is the blood? It's always the blood that saves us. But anyways, that's a whole nother story. So it was the blood, it ignites within seconds, it starts that stage 1. And then I realized, stage 2 comes on, and that's called the inflammation. So whenever you kind of start hurting and you actually start feeling the pain in that sore, so when it swells up and it has that redness around it, that's inflammation. And what's happening is it's trying to prevent any bacteria bacteria from getting into your wound. Okay, and then we go on to the next stage, which is called proliferation. And so now there's a covering that is trying to take place to cover that wound back up. And then we get to the final stage, which is our remodeling or maturation, whichever one you want to call it. And that's when you get that scar, so you're reminded. And so the thing is, sometimes there's some overlap in between these stages, but it's, as Femi says, the order matters. You know, they have to go through these stages in a certain order, in that exact order that I explained to you, in order for it to heal appropriately. And then every now and then there's some complications and there's some things that happen in life that sometimes delays or slows down or stops the healing process. You know, things like an infection. You know, you get an infection and sometimes it slows down. It'll stop the healing process in a certain stage where it can't get to the next stage until that infection is treated. And then sometimes, you know, a person who has diabetes, they don't have as good as a circulation, and you need that good circulation to help that wound heal. Or, you know, a poor nutrition, you don't really eat good enough, good protein and things that you need to heal that. So there's just all these outside things that can either like slow or stop the healing process. So then as I'm thinking about, I got all of this, y'all, from my injury from skating. So I'm thinking about all this, and I'm like looking at the wound, and how it just healed so nicely on its own. All I really had to do was keep it clean and dry. And then I realized, but many of us are walking around with wounds that have not healed. Many of us have acquired wounds over the years that we don't even realize have not healed. And see, some of these wounds, they started early as childhood, because I'm going to go back to school again, because I remember learning something about child development. And see, there are some needs that must be met as a child. And if some of these needs, they go unmet, what happens is they create wounds in us as adults. See, as a child, they have to have this sense of security, this sense of safety, you know, and if that's missing, then it'll cause some problems in adulthood. See, they got to have that validation. They got to know that they're enough. See, they got to be able to trust the ones that are taking care of them. They got to understand that I can trust this person. See, there's some things, some infection. There are things and there's needs that must be met as a child, and when those needs go unmet, it creates wounds. It creates hurt. It creates things that later on in life, as we become adults, it affects us. It affects how we respond. It affects our thought process. And then I realized, I was like, well, not even just the childhood wounds. Some of us have gotten over to adulthood, and we already got those wounds that have never been healed. But now we get wounds as adults. See, when you lose that loved one, or when you lost that baby that you have been trying so hard to get. So sometimes those things, they're causing wounds in us, and we don't realize that sometimes it got stopped in a stage, and it never progressed to the next stage to heal. So then we got these childhood wounds. We got wounds that came when we were adults, and then I had to be reminded. I was sitting there and I said, some of us even have what we call generational wounds. See, you didn't even get the original injury. You didn't even get that wound, but because great-great-grandfather or grandmother, and then it went down to mom or dad, and somehow it seemed to get to you. You didn't even get the original wound, but somehow you're still having to heal this thing. And it's not that mom and them didn't try. It's not that they didn't start the healing process, but something happened in life and they're stuck at the stage 2. They're stuck and they haven't been able to move. So you're wondering, why is it that I keep making these decisions and settling for these type of people, even though I know it mean no good for me? Why is it that this is my response to certain things? See, we don't even understand the way that these wounds that are not healed, the way they affect us. We don't even realize it, that it has a great deal to do on our thought process. And so as I get to this text and I'm reading, I said that there's a reason why we have Psalms 147 and 3, and there's a reason why it says he heals the brokenhearted and he binds up the wounds. There's a reason why, there's a text that says that he stays close to the brokenhearted and he saves those that are crushed in the spirit. See, there are some things, God understood that if there was a broken world and it's full of broken people, that sometimes you may get cut. So he realized that I have to fill up this word right here so they can understand that no, it's okay, because I heal the brokenhearted. He says I heal the brokenhearted and I bind up their wounds. So even though every now and then you may get cut, he says, but I'm here. He says, I'm here. And this is what I realized, though. This is the hard part. You have to choose to heal. It sounds clear, and it sounds like, okay, yeah, that's common sense. If I'm injured, if I'm hurt, if I'm sick, if I have this wound, I want to be healed, and it just makes sense, right? That's the obvious. But is it? Do you want to be healed? And so I'm reminded in the text, and I was flipping through and I was reading and looking at the different times that Jesus, he healed people, and the different times that he performed miracles. Most of the time before he did anything, there was a question. So I'm looking at the man at the pool of Bethesda, and it says that he was lame. He was paralyzed for 38 years. And it says that he was laying there, and it was a bunch of other lame people that were wounded people that were around there as well. And it says that Jesus asked him, he says, do you want to be made well? Do you want to be healed? And obviously we would be thinking, of course he want to be healed, right? That's why he's here. But see, I believe Jesus had to ask that question because he understands that it starts here. It's mental. I need to see where your state of mind is. I need to see where you are, because some of us, we choose to hold on to the hurt. The reason we do that is because oftentimes hurt is invisible in its natural state. Like you can't see it. So unless I show that you hurt me, you can't see it. And so we want to hold on to it because we don't want it to lose its significance. I don't want y'all to realize that I'm over this infidelity or this divorce that almost took me out. So I have to continue to talk about it. I have to continue to respond negatively when people talk about marriage, because see, I need you to see this hurt. We want to hold on to it. See, we can easily say, of course he wanted to be healed. He'd been sick for 38 years, but did he? Because sometimes you can get healed and you say, but Jesus, if you heal me, they won't see what I went through for 38 years. They won't see the pain and everybody that came and passed me by. So sometimes we choose to hold on to that hurt because we feel like it's going to lose its significance. So we choose to hold on. We choose to hold on to that hurt instead of letting it go and choosing to heal. So about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months, I read this book by Dr. Anita Phillips called The Garden Within. And after I finished reading this book, I literally felt like I was a certified psychologist. Like, I just feel like I can help everybody heal, you know? And so I remember telling myself, I said, you know what, as a provider, what I'm going to make sure I do is I'm going to make sure I treat people from the root. So if you picture a tree, I said, I'm going to treat them from the root. So you have the tree, it comes up, and then you have the branches. And I said, see, the branches, they're just the symptoms and the side effects of the real problem down at the root. And so often in the medical field, what I realized we do is we just put Band-Aids on the branches. So I had made up in my mind, man, this is how I'm going to practice from now on. So I remember I had a patient come in, and she has anxiety, and so she was coming in for a refill on her anxiety medication. So I remember I'm trying this because, now I'm thinking I'm like a certified psychologist. So I'm telling the patient, I said, I think this is good, this medication, that's helping you control your anxiety. I said, but how about we look at getting into therapy and maybe just really get into the root of what's causing the anxiety. Maybe, you can do the medication, but also do therapy and just other things that can truly heal you to where you won't even need the medication. I said, because see, really, the medication is just a Band-Aid on the symptom. It's not solving your anxiety. And so the patient, she told me, she said, I want my Band-Aid. And it was at that moment that I realized everybody don't want to be healed. Everybody does not want to be well. And that is why I believe Jesus often asks a question. And he asked this man, he says, do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be made well? That is why he had to ask this question. And you know, it's so funny. It's so easy for us to look on the outside. But really, if I'm honest, I can even tell you a story about myself. So about a week and a half ago, I was really upset about a situation and had this little problem that I was mad at a person and I didn't want to talk to him and I didn't want to deal with it because I was just so frustrated. So, but where the issue comes in, daily, I'm spending time in meditation and prayer with God, okay? So this incident happened. I'm so mad. I really just want to go off, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'm just not going to say anything. So the next day, I roll in, getting ready to do my reading and my meditation and my prayer, and then God starts speaking to me on this situation and telling me things to say to resolve this, to make it better, and I'm like, no. I want to be mad. And we do that. I don't want to pray about it. I don't want to, because I want to be mad. So in that moment, I chose to be mad. But too often we do that as individuals instead of really seeking what it is that God has for us. We choose, but here's the problem when we choose to hurt. Then we operate injured. We play injured. And when you look at any player that is playing injured, he's not or she's not playing at their full capacity. They're not playing at 100%. But then God has called us to wholeness. So when you start to choose hurt, now you're looking through a lens of hurt. Your lens is through hurt, and now you're wondering why you're depressed. You're angry. You say you're over that and you don't care about that, doesn't bother you. I'm unbothered. But you're angry every time something comes up about it. You're triggered every time something comes up about it. See, the symptom, you have emotions of sadness and shame and anger. And really, those are all just secondary emotions to the hurt that you have not allowed to heal. When you look through the lens of hurt, you operate injured. We do things, we leave spaces. Oh, I'm leaving that church, I'm leaving that job, I ain't fooling with my siblings, my daddy wasn't there when he was young. We're operating in hurt, so now we're not fooling them. So you leave that thing in which God had called you to because you were hurt. But God said, I had you there on assignment. But you left because you were looking out of a lens of hurt. But God said, I had you there on assignment. The only reason as believers that we should be ever changing direction is when we're being obedient to God. But when we look through a lens of hurt, we move off feelings. We move off somebody that hurt our feelings. We move off somebody that overlooked us. We move off things that rejected us. I was reading a story about David and King David and one of his sons. It said it was his third son, Absalom, I think was his name. It was his third son, and it said he was very charming and all the people just liked him, and he was very good looking. They said he was the most handsome in Israel, out of Israel, and they said people just really liked him. And so a little altercation, something that went down that he was mad at his dad, King David, for. So instead of following what God would want him to do, he decided to take matters into his own hands. So Absalom, he goes after his own dad and he tries to kill him. He wants to kill King David and pretty much take the throne. The issue, long story short, so you can't kill or take away anything God has put into place. And so God had King David in place, so then that left Absalom dead. Because you can't go out and try to take out what God has put in. So, but I was reading this story, and when I realized, I'm like, it said that David, so he had to flee. David had to run because his son was trying to kill him. And so it says after his son died, was killed, it says that David was heartbroken. It said he was hurt. He said he was crying. They said he was crying over his son. And I said, this is the same son that was trying to kill him. But see, David, he had a mindset of Christ. See, that was the difference. See, I'm sitting here saying my daddy didn't tell me happy birthday. I ain't talking to him this year. Those are the things we do. And my mama wasn't present like I needed her to be. I ain't fooling with her no more. But his son was trying to kill him, and he still was heartbroken when he died. Because that is what happened when you have a mind of Christ. That is what happens when you have a mind of Christ and you're moving the way that God would have you to move, and you're seeing the things that God would have you to do. Those are the when you're in the line with what God has called you to do, You're truly able to see his glory. You're truly able to not be fazed by the things that hurt will cause you to check out on, even though God has put you there on assignment. But then I realized, I said, see, in order for you to basically to choose to heal, you're choosing vulnerability. And then I had to look at that word vulnerable and vulnerability, and I had to kind of just dissect it and see. It says that to be vulnerable means to be open to being wounded or hurt, to be willing to show or to allow one's weakness to be seen or known. And I'm thinking to myself, well, God, if we want to. If we're already hurting, if we're already ashamed and been wounded, God, why would I open myself back up to being hurt again? I get it. See that one person that I confided in and that I trusted and I decided to open up with and to be honest with, they use it against me. That those parents or those adults that I thought was supposed to be looking out for me, they abuse me. See, God, why would I open myself up again to being vulnerable when I'm already hurt? So I get it. It makes sense. But you see that's the worldview of vulnerability. See that we look at vulnerability as weakness. But I'm reminded in 2 Corinthians in chapter 12 and 9, it tells us that my grace is sufficient. He says, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Some texts say my power is made perfect in weakness. So that same weakness that we want to throw away, we don't realize the power that it gives us. We don't realize that it empowers us to allow God to reign in us, to allow God to reign through us and to go through us and really, truly live a life that he has called us to live. See, what happens is when we choose to heal, then we begin to have a mind of Christ. We're in his presence because, see, one thing I noticed is that I couldn't be mad at this person and be in God's presence. It was one or the other. I couldn't worship and praise God and then curse this person. I couldn't do both. So I had to choose that. Although, God, I want to choose and be mad at this person because they hurt me, but I'm going to choose to heal because I realize there's more that you have for me. I realize that there's a peace, God, that surpasses all understanding that you have for me. See what I had to speak on this before the year ended because I believe that there are some people that need to heal from some things before we go into year 2024. I believe that there are some wounds that we got to heal. There are some wounds that we got to continue to go into the next stage of the healing process. Because you see, we can't continue to do it like this because God says that he has more glory for you. He has more goodness for you. And so we're operating in less than. See, some of us are choosing less than. Some of us are choosing not to go after all that God has for us just because we want to hold on to that hurt. We want to hold on to what that person done to me. We want to hold on to that abuse. We don't want to let it go because it's not fair that it happened to me. It's not okay that it happens to me. But when we hold on to that hurt, when we hold on to that injury, we hold on to those things, then it allows us to see, it looks through a lens of hurt. We look through that lens of hurt. And we wonder why this is our thought process. Why am I taking offense to everything? Why am I mad at everybody? Why can't I sleep at night? Why can't I forgive them? I truly believe that there is more that God has for us in this season as we roll into 2024. And I believe that God says, hey, we still got some days in 2023. And he says there's some wounds that I have been trying to heal in your life that you just wanted to hold on to. And he says, I'm not dismissing anything that you went through. I'm not dismissing the hurt, the tears that you've cried. He says, but I need you to let it go. He says, I need you to let go of the hurt. And I want you to grab onto my word. He says, because my word says that I will heal the brokenhearted and I'll bind up your wounds. He says, I need you to let go of the hurt.